Tabletops will start after the following messages.
Are you looking for something comfortable to wear and keep your brain warm while playing tabletop games? Daily Dose of Yarn makes handmade, customized beanies for all of your style and comfort needs. She can even help you with a custom beanie to represent your favorite character. Check out Daily Dose of Yarn on Instagram and Etsy to order your new favorite beanie today.
Hey cool people, do you like mead, magic, and long walks in the icy tundra? Ever wonder what your sled dogs are thinking about? Why not cap off your night with a frosty tabletop adventure?
You will come to love my beef cliff.
You're at the common room. Go to your room.
Excuse us.
Excuse me, Dogcliff. What's your favorite food?
Sausages, probably.
No, you look like a strong lot, but I've got more friends than you.
Carnelian's like shortened on the ground and he's standing on top of the table.
You know what you have to do.
Carnelian stabs him in the butt.
What did he say?
He likes sausages.
Oh my god, me too.
Alright, I'll sit beside Word and start carving his rod.
Oh my god. Sveta, my rod's nearing completion by the looks of things.
Unless the four of you can stop them.
Well, grab your Ugg boots and join Reflex Save every Wednesday on your favorite podcast platform.
Welcome back to Tabletop, everyone. This is Nick, your host, and your big brother who just found out he's going to college. See ya, twerp. I got a real life to live. Anyway, today we have a really great interview. It's our first return guest. It's Mike Sands, the creator of Monster of the Week, my personal favorite TTRPG. Now, he came on not just to talk to me, which, I mean, could you blame him? But also because he has the Codex of World expansion coming out very soon. The Kickstarter or the crowdfunding is happening right now. The link is in the bio. Go to it. You can get some crazy good deals. A lot of really cool stuff in these bundles that they've put together. And man, I have already backed it because this conversation, it revealed this codex to be incredibly necessary for people who love Powered by the Apocalypse and Monster of the Week. One more thing, next week is our podcast's first anniversary. We've been going for a full year, and to celebrate, we're going to have 2 new episodes on Monday and Tuesday, and then 3 of our favorites from the past year pulled from the archives and re-released. If you guys want to support the podcast as we go into our new year, well, there's a lot of things you could do. You could go to tabletoppod.com and click on the Discord button. That will invite you to our Discord server. It's free, it's fun, and there's a lot of people talking TTRPGs all the time. Now you can also go to our Patreon and subscribe for as little as $1. There's going to be a lot of cool new things in the new year, some new fresh episodes that will only be for patrons and subscribers. It's going to be really, really cool, so you're going to want to join that. And again, it can be as low as $1. And if you also want to help out the show, then please rate and review and share with friends. You can do that in whatever podcast catcher you play your podcast from. All right, everyone, here is my interview with Mike Sands. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop, and today we have our first return guest. You know him, you love him, the creator of Monster of the Week, Mike Sands. Mike, how have you been?
Good. Been very busy getting ready for the Codex crowdfund that, as we record, is set to start in a few days. So, with lots of stuff happening there to get that ready.
Yeah, I've been waiting with bated breath on this. The Codex of Worlds, the new kind of supplement or expansion to Monster of the Week. It looks amazing. You were very kind to send me the table of contents, and it looks like it's pretty substantial as well. It's over 400 pages. It's quite a lot in it. What made you want to sort of get into making this supplement?
It was actually Merrick, who's the co-author on it and wrote about half of it. He pitched the idea to me and the folks at Evil Hat with the first of the big new settings that he'd been working on. And that plus the idea I'd had for getting something along the lines of the Blades in the Dark crew playbooks into Monster of the Week as a way to kind of bring hunter teams together. Kind of felt like it would make a good, substantial supplement that kind of offered some new stuff that hasn't been in the Monster of the Week material we've seen so far.
Yeah, one of the big additions that you have put into this is the team playbooks. And I was kind of fascinated by this because when playing Monster of the Week, all of the individual hunters fall into these archetypes like we talked about last time. They all feel super clean. They feel really like the epitome of what those archetypes do in Monster of the Week genre fiction. But it did always feel like you're going to be operating a lot of these times as teams. And in Monster of the Week fiction, there's always, the Scooby Gang or whatever. They kind of have these crews that they always are with. So I assume that's where the entry point to where when you started developing this. But what design elements did you want to bring in to make this cohesive and push sort of a unified play?
On the first part is to give it some special abilities tied to each team type so that you kind of got a bit of personality and some new stuff you could do. And the second big element of it is to kind of provide a certain kind of story that you'd expect for the playbook. To take an example, like one of the team playbooks is the Agents in Black, which is like a Men in Black style one. So for them, like all the elements of the playbook play into like weird technology and aliens and conspiracies and that sort of thing, because obviously that's where that kind of team goes to. And then you've got kind of more straightforward ones, like there's a team playbook for the Chosen One and Entourage, which is essentially the Scooby Gang.
Classic Buffy,
which is, again, what you'd expect for that. And then we've got a few like much more wild and way out ones if you want to go for something really, really different, which...
one of the ones that you have here is the Touring Band, which I think is like, I'm so excited to read into that, see what that is all about.
It's just what it says. You're a band, you're on the road, and everywhere you go, every gig, there's monsters and weirdness to find. So, they're good fun.
The thing that I'm so excited about this, too, is it brings such a unique flavor to Monster of the Week, so it can be a lot of different things at once within the system. I was talking to another developer, Fern Milton, who was talking about how mechanics should always be in service to the type of fiction that you're trying to tell. And like it should all be cohesive through that. So the mechanics of the game should also be storytelling in the way that the fiction that you're telling is, so that the players don't get bounced out by checking the the numbers or whatever.
And I think it's all the what we've been trying to do with these is give you kind of suggestions and mechanical things you can play with that all kind of feed into that. One of the aspects you get with each of the team playbooks is you get to pick your main nemesis, which might be an individual or might be a group of creatures. So you're going to have that to flavor it. You might have some allies for your whole team of people you can call on and a bunch of assets, which are like useful things like a headquarters or vehicles or special gear. So all of these things you get access to from the team playbook. So I think people will really enjoy kind of playing with those and trying them out and seeing what kind of different sorts of Monster of the Week stories you can get.
Yeah, I've just always really loved how specific the game feels, and I feel like you've kind of one-upped yourself by saying, okay, this is a very specific genre, but there are sub-genres within this that we can really drill down to.
Yeah, and I'd say actually like the core thematic concept of the whole Codex of Worlds is like taking the familiar Monster of the Week and putting a big spin on it, taking it somewhere new. And like the team playbooks do that in a small way, and the new settings do that in a big way.
Let's talk about the settings a little bit, because a huge chunk of this, the table of contents that you sent, are different like worlds, different settings, different things that are you even have introductory mysteries to introduce them within these settings, things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about how these other worlds work and how they kind of fit within the Monster of the Week system?
Okay. I'll go through them in order. It's probably the easiest, isn't it? So the first one up is the Strange Old House, which is one of mine. That one is probably the closest to a normal Monster of the Week game, in which you're probably in the world today, and your hunter team inherits a weird haunted house. It's riffing off things like Lock and Key or House of Leaves, where you've got a mysterious house with lots of secrets in it, and as you play, you're going to explore the house and find out more of the secrets, find out special abilities from different places you discover, and eventually, presumably, you'll get to the bottom of the mystery of the house and hopefully solve it, or solve one part of it and have a new problem appear. So that's the first one. It's kind of the like I say, it's probably the closest to a normal Monster of the Week game.
And in that sort of that kind of brought a question up in my mind about how these new settings work as well. Is so one of the core tenets of the first book is play to find out what happens, and this is collaborative. Yep. We're all kind of doing this together. So do these settings have preset, like you have introductory mysteries in here and some of them, but do they have preset endings or things like you said, a mystery of the house that you can get to, or is it more just flavor and rules about how to operate within the house?
Yeah, the house, there's like a worksheet you'll go through at the beginning of the game where the group as a whole collaborates on what the house is like, and you'll get the features of it, what sort of mysteries there, what kinds of monsters the house might attract, and that sort of thing. And from there you'll play normally as you play in Monster of the Week.
Right.
At the beginning you won't really know what the ultimate mystery is, the keeper or the hunters, but as you play you'll find out.
Yeah.
Some of the other settings are a bit more defined in that way. Others are more open.
Yeah, so again, really offering a huge variance in how you can interface with the system to play. So if you are somebody who's coming from like a world of, pre-designed modules and things like that, then you can use one of these worlds to kind of interface into this system and learn it and get your group familiar with it before you move into, one of the looser worlds or your own world that you've made up, things like that.
Actually, the reason we've included introductory mysteries with each of the settings is partly to make it easier for people to get into. So not only can they read the details of like, here's the rules for this setting and here's what's going on, but they've got like, okay, here's your first mystery that you can either use as is or adapt, and that gives you the flavor that you need. So hopefully it should be not easy for everyone to kind of jump right into these, whichever one appeals to them the most.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited. Specifically, this old house really drew me in because I've always been a fan of like haunted houses or like houses. Like you said, House of Leaves is just a fantastic book of like, why is this house so big on the inside? That stuff's just awesome. Cool. So the next world that you have here is the Gothic Century. So what is that sort of flavor?
That's straight up Gothic literature. This is one of Merrick's ones, and he actually wrote a piece in the Tome of Mysteries about bringing a kind of Gothic sensibility to Monster of the Week, and Gothic in the literature sense. And so here he's expanded out those ideas and given you all that you're going to need to write kind of 19th century or play 19th century stories in that Gothic style. So that includes the idea of a haunt, which is kind of a Gothic sort of mystery with a bit more going on in it. He's got a haunted mansion as one of those in this one. And it also talks a bit about changing the playbooks for the 19th century setting. He's got some classic monsters and people from Gothic literature that you can drop into your game. I think we've got Dracula and Dorian Gray and a few other people like that.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. The other thing he adds is the idea of a dark past for your hunter. So they can take one of these if they want, which gives them some kind of terrible traumatic backstory that will continue to come out in play.
Traumatic backstories, not just for the wronged anymore.
Yep. He's also got a good discussion about setting the game and like adjusting a historical city to to give it more of a gothic sensibility and make it workable in play.
That's really amazing. So it's sort of like bringing in the stories that are like, you know, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen style. Like you can put it in like, you know, old London or whatever you want, or like Turn of the Screw with the haunted mansion sort of feel and all that kind of stuff. That's really cool. I actually in our gaming group, I have one person specifically who's I think gonna flip out about about that specifically.
No, there's a lot to dig into there. It's really cool. Looking through what else is in there.
Yeah, one thing that you've mentioned before, and it's also in one of the kind of sub parts of this table of contents, is villains. And this one, it says Gothic villains and like what those are, and you kind of talked about them like Dracula and all that kind of stuff. But can you is the goal of instituting the villain into the game rules to sort of add that sort of in Monster of the Week fiction, sort of that season-long enemy where it's not just whatever enemy they're doing per week?
There's kind of there's two things here. In the Gothic century, the villains are the classic Gothic villains like Dracula and so on that you'd expect. However, in the Monster Marches setting, I believe there's a concept of a villain as a new threat type. And we're jumping ahead in the settings, but in the Monster Marches, which is kind of a medieval fantasy setting with a conflict between like the wilderness and the spirits of that, and kind of a colonizing and developing nation.
Is it sort of inspired by like Westmarch style campaigns or things like that, where it is sort of like going out into the unknown?
By The Witcher.
Cool.
So it's that sort of kind of Central European flavored kind of dark fantasy.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Again, you're going to make a couple people in my game group very happy.
In that, villains are a threat type. They are humans who are doing bad things, but they're not necessarily like a monster. Yeah. So they might be someone that you can convince to back off and not be a threat, or they might be someone who's just ambitious or cruel.
Yeah.
So there's a separate threat type for that setting to kind of encompass the like non-supernatural enemies, basically.
Sure. Yeah. So would you in a session that you are building as a keeper for that sort of thing with this new threat type, would you have a monster of the week that you are building, and that's going to be in your countdown clock, but then you're also going to have this threat type of the villain of who's like maybe the baron of this small area of land where the monster is residing? Or
or I mean, you could even have villain as the main problem for a mystery, and the monsters being kind of a side issue,
right? Just like the monsters are there, but the real issue is this guy who's like a real dick.
I think one of the examples in there is pretty much that, where there's like an evil, he might even be an evil baron, and what he's doing has stirred up the spirits and caused all kinds of other problems.
Yes.
So although the spirits are causing problems, the
baron is the root cause. Yeah, it's almost like so in a way it's kind of like that the villain is the weakness condition of the monsters in some way, where it's like the real issue that you have to deal with is this person.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you have classic haunted house fiction, you have like gothic fiction, you have dark fantasy Witcher type fiction. I also see Dreaming with the Gods, which I am assuming is probably Lovecraftian or some sort of like
not exactly,
not really. Okay.
No. Okay. We skipped over that to get to the Monster Marches. But Dreaming with the Gods is a Renaissance style setting in a not quite Europe. It's another of Merrick's creations, and it's got some really crazy ideas about the dream world as a separate place where magic happens. So there's a lot of rules for like exploring the dream world, which I guess is kind of like Lovecraft's Dreamlands.
Yeah.
But, it's also got a kind of I said it's kind of Renaissance flavored. It's an occult Renaissance where they're rediscovering the magic of the past.
Yeah.
So we've got all these kind of classical Mediterranean inflected monsters that are kind of reawakening with the reawakening of magic.
Mm.
And the hunters will be caught in between, like, alchemists who are trying to reawaken all this old, incredibly dangerous magic and pull things out of the dreams of people into the world. So yeah, that's and it's got, on top of all that, it's kind of got a bit more of a swashbuckling vibe. So there's a very much a kind of Three Musketeers style, or that sort of adventure style to it. A little bit of kind of, I guess, not quite steampunk, but maybe like Da Vinci's inventions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like a flying machine and things like that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very cool.
Machines. So yeah.
And with that setting, I assume that it's also like very much, you kind of have a mix through a lot of these, but it can travel. It sounds like you said it's a kind of an interpretation of Europe, so you could probably go all over the place within this setting. That's really cool. So one thing that I am interested about, so we've already talked about monster marshes, but then you just have something that says Bone Spear. Is that a setting, or is that something completely separate?
Setting.
Okay.
Yep. No, that's a setting I wrote, and it takes Monster of the Week and sets it back in the Mesolithic or Neolithic.
So you just went way in the past with it. That's very cool.
Yeah. So it's got a kind of animistic feel, where like there's spirits everywhere and everything's kind of alive.
Yeah.
And you'll be basically the people who are in a community who are expected to be going out and saving them from monsters. So it's kind of got a bit of a community focus and lots of rules about working with your community and building that up, as well as kind of very different ideas about magic and spirits and things like that.
Yeah, it seems like it's actually fairly different from the other options, because you actually have your own agendas, playbooks, and basic moves listed in there as well. So is it almost like
there's a lot of changes? Yeah,
is it like a complete like kind of expansion to the game in that way, where it's just a bunch of new content within this new setting, or?
It's the biggest kind of revision of Monster of the Week of the ones here. Like they all do some. And in fact, we'll be building out. There's going to be like sets of playbooks for the Gothic setting, the Dreaming with the Gods, and Monster Marches as well, with the kind of the adjustments in there. But Bone Spear kind of takes it the furthest. There are some completely rewritten playbooks that are not exactly recognizable. There are a lot of adjustments even for the ones that are still there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the basic moves are different because of different logics about gear, because obviously you can't go and buy something right then. You've got to make it.
Yeah.
And the rules for healing and harm are adjusted as well.
Even luck, it says that you've kind of transposed luck into a new form as well.
Yeah, that's mainly just a rename.
Okay. I was like,
it
oh no, luck.
The same. It's just it's renamed Ancestral Favor, and it's the idea that it's the spirits helping you rather than kind of an intrinsic thing.
Yeah. Is it so with Bone Spear and this kind of new time period that is vastly different than normal Monster of the Week fiction, are your main enemies going to be sort of the folklore that we told, like that in the past people told to explain certain things that were, natural, that you are then making manifest because you're like, this is the way it was, kind of thing?
That's part of it. I mean, obviously it's all very speculative, but
sure.
The one of the changes in there is that the monsters are built differently. There's a whole set of new threat types for them to reflect the setting. And mysteries are built differently too. One of the new rules that's in this book is called Atonement Mysteries, and that was built for Bone Spear. And that's the idea that rather than a monster having a weakness that allows you to kill it, each mystery is caused by something that went wrong or something someone did that caused a problem. And you've got to like figure out what that is and then somehow fix it or make recompense for it or somehow sort that out to solve the mystery. So monsters themselves aren't intrinsically evil necessarily. They might just be reacting to something bad that's going on.
That's really interesting.
Your job's going to sort that out.
Can that be then taken and transposed into other settings, or like that idea, like the atonement mysteries? Because that sounds like really perfect if you're playing a longer term game and you're like 3 mysteries in or something, and you're like, yeah, something you did back in mystery 1 has really screwed up, and like this is what you're dealing with now, kind of thing.
Yeah, we've pulled it out and made it an optional rules module so that if you want to just use that in place of weaknesses, or sometimes in place of weaknesses, you can, because like you say, you can. That idea works in other Monster of the Week settings too. So
that's amazing. There's just, I have to say that when you first sent me this, I was like, there is a huge amount of content that you all are releasing in this codex. It's just kind of blows my mind. Not only have you kind of led with the team playbook stuff, which is in its own right sort of expansionary material. Like if you had just released a team playbook supplement, like that's one thing. But then you have essentially these 4 to 5, I guess, of their own settings. A couple of them have completely overhauled the underlying system with new agendas, playbooks, things like that. What kind of drove you to want to add all of this into Monster of the Week? Because it is everyone, at least that I talk to, really loves Monster of the Week. It works really well. Cool. And with like the Tome of Mysteries, it even more fleshed out, sort of like bigger like mysteries and environmental things that you can deal with. And now you're going even bigger with all of these different worlds and things that you're giving to players. So what kind of inspired that feeling?
Well, I think that is kind of the heart of it. Like I wasn't very interested in releasing another supplement that's kind of more of the same. Sure. So when Merrick came up with this idea of like complete new settings and like really big changes to the underlying stuff, I thought, this is something that adds a lot. People are going to be able to get a lot out of this, even if they don't use like one of these particular settings. There's so many cool ideas in each of them. Yeah. That I'm sure people will be able to kind of pull this bit or that bit out into whichever game they're playing. So yeah, I think it's the fact that it's so different is this was the thing that won me over to the idea of creating it.
I really love that you already are talking about how you can essentially take all of these different aspects that you've included in the different things and kind of smash them together to if it works for your world as well. Like you can take the bits and pieces that really work, even if you don't want to set a campaign specifically in one of these pre-built ones.
Oh, actually, if you want to do that, one of the team playbooks is the Interdimensional Crisis Team, which is specifically designed to travel between different universes.
That's amazing.
And also the Guardians of the Borderland. Are people who are defending a place where other worlds can connect to this one. So both of those allow you to even mix and match the settings.
You're being like, hey, interdimensional multiverse people, this is your jam.
Yep.
That's amazing. I can't wait. I have already like 100 ideas for things that you can awesome. Do with this. Yeah. And in fact, you even have a section at the end of building your own worlds. Is this sort of like taking all of you and Merrick's experiences when you were coming up with these settings and then distilling it down into principles?
Yeah, we basically thought, we'll both sit down and write like all the stuff we thought about and went through and the issues we found. So hopefully that'll provide some really good kind of ideas and advice for anyone who wants to do their own like Wild West or their own fantasy setting in a different sort of style, and that's definitely something that comes up a lot. Like I've noticed this on the Monster of the Week Reddit and places like that. People are always kind of taking Monster of the Week and adjusting it to different settings. So I'm hoping that a lot of the stuff in the Codex will be really useful to people doing that. even if it's just for ideas or just seeing what other people, what we've done and adjusting to different settings.
Yeah, it's almost I really appreciate that you've taken it and distilled down like basically two professionals' ideas and then said like, hey, you know, folks at home, the prosumers, if you would, of like the development stuff, like this is the stuff to watch out for, but you can do anything you want with this, which I think is just so it's sort of like turning over the keys a little bit to players and keepers, allowing them to really make the game their own for their specific campaigns.
Yeah, well, I think that's always what you are doing as a role-playing game designer, because, I mean, role-playing games, that the actual game that takes place at people's tables is the thing that matters, right?
Yeah.
And as a designer, I feel like I'm like the person writing a recipe book. You know, I'm just like, here's how it works for me to get this effect. Take it, try it, and of course you can adjust the recipe. If you don't like this ingredient or that ingredient, you switch in something you do. So I think that's that kind of course, everyone's always going to take it, adjust it, and make it fit them, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And I think the job of the designer is to give you a starting point and hopefully a bunch of ideas that'll spark off and create great games.
Yeah, I think that this is just huge because I was also talking to another developer recently about how they were talking about how, not frustrating, but how they were always kind of confused about why somebody would just use a D20 system for all of the different genres that you can tell with TTRPGs, because there are some that just, you know, some genres just don't fit into D20 systems very well. And they, all this kind of stuff. It sounds like with this really customizable building your own world supplement, that people are really going to be able to take the very the specific experience that they're looking to get out of the game and really use this system to facilitate it, which is really exciting. I have a Weird West campaign that kind of fell apart because I was trying to use Urban Shadows for it, and it just didn't quite fit because of the factions and some other things. And now I'm like, ooh, I have a new way in. Yeah. So when you are looking at this because it is a very sizable continuation of the rules, for people who are both familiar and unfamiliar, what are the things that you are like, read these first, and if you want like the thing that you are excited about but also think is like widely accessible, diving right in, not a whole lot of changes, what part of this new expansion are your eyes kind of drawn to? Are you looking at specific playbooks or specific worlds that were built? Or
I think it depends a bit where your starting point is. Like if you've got an ongoing Monster of the Week game, and you want to continue that, I would say probably you want to look at the team playbooks and go, which of these fits our team? Can we just apply that? We can start using those rules. And that's really going to be just looking through them and see which one fits and which one looks exciting. If you're about to start a new Monster of the Week series, then I think you just want to flick through and find the bit that looks coolest. Whether that's
the one that you're like, I fucking love this.
And that could be like just one of the team playbooks and you'll just play a regular Monster of the Week game in the contemporary world, or one of the settings might speak to you and go, I've got to do this one. So I think that's really, and if you're someone who's planning a game and you've got some very specific ideas about what's going to be and change the setting, then the advice on how to do that, and then looking through the different settings to see the examples of what we've done there.
Yeah, it's really funny because one of the biggest problems I've had when I've tried to create like mystery fiction and things like that within TTRPGs and Monster of the Week and all these other things is the existence of cell phones. I've always been like, God damn these cell phones. So I am really excited for just the idea that you can, you know, go into this strange old house and be like, in here it's like a zone where just no radio signals are, and this house is huge and you don't know why, or whatever the thing, classic literature things there. Or even like, hey, you guys are going to be, we have a Dracula situation. And so we're back in the, 18th century or whatever.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, this is very exciting to me. Is there a specific thing that you were like, this is my favorite thing out of this book that you have, either that you developed or your partner developed? Which part of this did you read and be like, that's really good?
That's a tough one. I think the Monster Marches, when I first saw the full draft of that, I want to play in this sometime. I still haven't got a chance to yet, but
yeah, it sounds like a perfect blend between Monster of the Week and like a fantasy genre generally.
Yeah,
just
I think
like
Eric's done a really good job of kind of getting that balance exactly right.
One thing I kind of, from our last talk, that you were talking about another game that you were developing, and it kind of like sounds like in a way it has a little bit of DNA and Bone Spear as well, is that the one that was the Stargate one where you step through the portal and then you're sort of in a prehistoric world that you have to sort of start from scratch and build from there. Did any of the stuff that you were working on when developing that make its way into Bone Spear?
Not that part so much, but some of the ideas about getting away from kind of fighting be the primary kind of conflict in a game, like that game Xenogate Expedition 13 has got a focus, or as it is at the moment, on being a research expedition. So you're not going out there to fight aliens, you're going out there to explore and figure things out. And I think Bone Spear and its Atonement Mysteries have got a similar kind of moving away from fighting to problem solving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it also kind of sounds like, in a way, with the way you were talking about communities and the like crafting of gear, it sounds like a lot of that also has its, maybe was on in the back of your mind when you started developing Bone Spear as well.
I'd been playing a lot of Band of Blades before that, so that's where it
gotcha.
So that the downtime phase of Band of Blades has definitely fed into a lot of the other stuff that I've been doing recently.
Well, for good reason. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I really love those mechanics as well.
Yeah.
One thing I also wanted to talk about is the safety tools that you have at the top. What is the safety tools when it comes to Monster of the Week, and what was on your mind when you guys were writing those out and trying to make sure that they were included in this new codex?
Yeah, it came up because Marek noticed that, like, particularly the dark pasts in Gothic Century, they can get pretty dark with addressing things like suicides and other kind of quite nasty trauma. And like Monster of the Week was written back in like 2010, before safety tools and gaming were widely used, so it doesn't mention them at all. And I thought, as Marek was saying, that we kind of need some content warning stuff in there for that. We should actually make a big section of, when you're playing Monster of the Week, you're going to get into horror areas. It can be a problem. So we'll kind of bring in some of the kind of more modern understanding of how to use safety tools in games there. And I don't think we've done anything terribly radical, but we've at least pointed people at some of the commonly used ones and talk about why you need them and that sort of thing.
I mean, honestly, you're saying that it's not overly radical, but a lot of mainstream games just don't include them at all. So it's just like, bravo to you guys. And also I'm excited to see what are in there and how to use them. I think that especially with the way that Monster of the Week and some Powered by the Apocalypse games start out with the kind of communal creation of hunters in the world and stuff like that, that safety tools and having them in the book are going to be huge, because that's, the session zero of a Monster of the Week.
Yeah, and that's exactly the motivation of having them there. Just, and from my perspective, I feel like it's not so important, like, exactly which you use, because there are a variety out there, but more that you have that discussion with your group so that you're all on the same page about the fact that you are there in a safe way to play the game. And like, whatever way you negotiate that with your group, if everyone's happy and you've got a process, that's the important bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just all about, that general table agreement.
Yeah.
rather than any specific tool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for this. You mentioned at the top that as we record this, the Kickstarter is coming up.
Yeah.
What is that whole thing? How can people support this project? How can they get their own Codex of Worlds and things like that? I don't want people to miss out on the opportunity of getting in at the ground floor.
So we are crowdfunding on BackerKit, and I will provide the link so that you can point people at it.
Yes, it will be in the show notes and also on our Twitter.
So we're basically crowdfunding for the print run to kind of gauge how many books we need to print and hopefully get enough to cover them all, and also cover the various development costs that have gone into it. And people will see there's going to be a bunch of stretch goals for some extra content that won't be going in the book. It'll be released as PDFs, but more mysteries, more team playbooks, more all sorts of things like that.
That's amazing. And also, that's not kind of the only thing that people can, if they want to support Monster of the Week or get their own copy. There's a new hardcover edition of the main rule book as well, right?
There is, which is due for release in, I think, towards the end of the crowdfund.
That's amazing.
There's
a brand new art and everything. That's beautiful.
Yep. We've got new cover art, and it's a lovely hardcover edition. So, this is just really a reprint more than anything else. Certainly for some of us, like me, I've got some softcover Monster of the Week books from the first printing that are looking pretty beaten up now. So it's kind of to give you a tougher version of it if you're in that stage, or for people new coming in to get it. We didn't want to make people feel like they had to buy it, so there's no absolutely new material in there. But what we have done is included some of the extra rules from the Tome of Mysteries, like Phenomenon Mysteries and the alternate weird moves are now in the main book as well.
That's awesome.
And there's a couple of playbooks that were previously available in other places that are now in the main book, which are the Snoop, the investigative reporter, and the Spooktacular, who's the kind of carny type supernatural circus person.
I have to be honest, I hadn't found the Spooktacular yet, so I cannot wait to just thumb through the moves and all of that. That sounds amazing.
Cool.
All of that's going to be coming. If you want to support the Codex of Worlds and help crowdfund it and get yours, the link will be in the show notes. You can also head to @Tabletopped on Twitter or @MOTW. That's the Monster of the Week Twitter handle as well, correct? Yep. And then there's also Evil Hat. If you just look, I'm sure that they're going to have some stuff pointing folks to the crowdfund as well. Everyone should support this. As I'm looking at the table of contents, I'm just getting so excited to run my own Witcher campaign. It's going to be a lot of fun. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with as they sort of are anticipating the Codex of Worlds? And is there anything that's going through your mind about the future of Monster of the Week or anything like that?
I was going to add that I think there's a plan that you'll be able to get a copy of the hardcover in a bundle in the crowdfund. I'm not 100% sure about that. I haven't seen the final things, but you might be able to get them together. So
cool.
That's also an option. In terms of the future of Monster of the Week, once the crowdfund starts next week, I'm going to have to start thinking about the stretch goals, I think, because I'm going to be writing a few of those if we reach them. I've got one other thing planned that isn't on that stretch goal list for a release. And probably there'll be some more team playbooks coming out in the future. So
that's amazing.
But nothing big on the horizon for Monster of the Week. Just a few smaller things.
Well, I, as a huge fan of this system and your work, I'll definitely be reaching out when those are on the horizon so we can talk about those as well. But yeah, and let's talk about some of your other projects. We were talking about the other work that we had been talking about last time you were on. Is there anything upcoming for those that people are able to support you with, or things that you're interested in sharing?
Xenogate Expedition 13 I'm still working on. I've done a playtest season of that, and we're currently between seasons there. I've got some revisions to make and some adjustments to do before I go back to that, and possibly I'll be doing something about a kind of public playtest version of that later, once I've kind of got that sorted out. At the moment, I've got a mini preview edition available on Itch and Drive Through RPG, which is like a little taster of the game. So you can go check out that if you want to see what it's like.
I really recommend people do, because after we talked last time, I took a look, and it definitely wets the whistle on what's to come.
Yeah. The other thing I'm working on at the moment is a game that's currently got the working title of Glorious, which is about Napoleonic naval adventures. So Hornblower and Patrick O'Brien's Aubrey and Maturin books, that sort of thing. So where you're British sailors in the Royal Navy on the high seas during the Napoleonic Wars, getting into scrapes, adventures, battles, and that sort of thing. So that's my current next one after Xenogate Expedition.
Well, all of those are they just sound so fun, and I can't wait to see what you come up with in those works, and I can't wait to get my hands on the Codex of Worlds as well. So, Mike Sands, where can people follow you? We told the Twitter handle. Also, you're pretty active in the Monster of the Week Reddit, if people ask questions and things like that. Is there any way that people can, or that you would like people to be able to find you?
I've also got a Generic Games account on Mastodon, where people can follow me over on Dice Camp. I could provide a link to that, or my Generic Games website is the other place to get in touch. Oh, and I've recently added a Substack newsletter, which is another place to get things. So I'll provide links for all of those things, and you can look at them in the show notes, I guess, and keep track of which ones work best for you.
Amazing. Mike Sands, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll talk to you soon. I hope that this crowdfund goes amazing, and I can't wait to read this book.
I'm very excited, looking forward to it.
All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone, for listening to another episode of Tabletopped. My name's Nick, and I'm the host and creator of the show. And if you want to contact us, head to our website, tabletopod.com. There's a contact form on the main page. If you scroll down a little bit, we read all of our messages. So if you want to give us a little bit of feedback or suggest content for the show, please, that's the place to do it. If you want to be in part of our community, hit that Discord button on the same website. And guess what? You will join a really vibrant community of people who love to talk about TTRPGs. And if you want to support the show financially, the Patreon is available on our website as well. Just hit the Patreon button, and it is a pay what you want Patreon. We're going to be doing a lot of free episodes and stuff like that throughout the new year. So please, if you're interested, you can support us there. If you're not able to support the show financially but still want to support the show, thank you so much. You can go into your podcast player you're listening to this on and leave a review and a rating. I try to read out the ones that I can find, so feel free to make fun of me in them as well. If you also want to support the show, then please share an episode you really enjoy with a friend. That way we can spread the love of TTRPGs and build this community together. All right, everyone, we'll see you next week for our anniversary episode of Tabletopped.